Mr. Holmes? Hello.
Sherlock Holmes, one of the best-seller fictional detective series around the world, was created by Arthur Conan Doyle. Arthur Conan Doyle was born on 22nd May 1859 in Edinburgh, Scotland. In his childhood, his mother often told bedtime stories to comfort him from his alcoholic father, and this probably planted the seed of storytelling in little Arthur. Before becoming one of the world's famous authors, Arthur pursued his degree as a doctor at the University of Edinburgh. In his life as a doctor, he became the lead doctor of a 50-bed hospital in South Africa during the Boer War. He was knighted to be the Knight Bachelor in 1902 for his non-fiction book about the Boer War, which he wrote after his return to England. In March 1886, the first novel under the Sherlock Holmes series, A Study in Scarlet, was published in Beaton's Christmas Annual, which brought him great fame. In his later years, he published many pieces of different genres, such as science fiction, poems, historical fiction, and so on. The Adventure of the Dancing Man and The Adventure of the Engineer's Tomb are the chosen short stories written by Arthur for the purpose of this analysis. The Dancing Man is about Holmes solving a set of codes that looks like stickman dancing in order to reveal the hidden secrets behind a murder happened between a newly wedded, which involved a third person.
The Engineer's Tomb is about a case where an engineer named Mr. Victor Hartley was almost killed by a man named Colonel Lysander Stark, in which he survived, but it caused his tomb to escape.
Both stories have an introduction, rising action, climax, falling action, and a conclusion. The only difference is that The Dancing Man has a linear storyline where everything was told in chronological order, while The Engineer's Tomb used flashback to introduce the client's story. Thus, the story began with the present, flashback of something that already happened, a conclusion that went back to the present time again. The theme in Dancing Man is that the trust one has in the other person is the foundation of a strong relationship in marriage. In the story, Elsie refused to tell her past to her husband, and this eventually caused her husband's death.
The theme in The Engineer's Tomb is trust, and it is shown through actions. At first, the engineer did not trust the colonel because the offer money was big and the job was simple for him, and he kept being asked about personal matters. That's why he did not trust him at first, and also he did not trust the woman he met at the place because he needed the money, right? So he just ignored her.
Both Holmes and Dr. Watson appeared in both stories. Holmes in both stories were observant, analytical, and intelligent. Dr. Watson in both stories acted as the accompanist and assistant of Holmes by answering Holmes' questions about the case from his side of view. Mr. Cupid in The Dancing Man, who was the client who sought help from Holmes to solve the mystery of the Dancing Man drawings that threatened his wife, just Elsie Cupid. He was an Englishman who is kind, generous, and patient to his wife and loved his wife very much despite her mysterious past.
Mr. Victor Hartley was the client who was brought to Holmes after receiving help from Dr. Watson to dress his wound, where he lost his thumb. He is an engineer and he's very professional and observant, but at the same time, he's also very naive. He was offered a large amount of money, which is 50 guineas, and he happily accepted the offer without a doubt, because the only thing he needed to do was just to fix the machine.
And Mistress Cupid has a mysterious past she refused to let anyone know, including her husband. Her lack of trust in her husband, stubbornness of holding the secrets, and the fear of talking about her past, which eventually lead to her husband's death later in the story. Abe Slaney, the villain in the story, the murderer who shot Mr. Cupid to death even though he did not intend to do it. Throughout the story, we can see that Abe has a temper, but he also loved Elsie very much. Followed Elsie to England, trying to win her back by threatening her using the Dancing Man code.
So the antagonist is Colonel Lysander Stark, and he is like mysterious foreign man and he's very dangerous.
The internal conflict in Dancing Man is when Mr. Cupid wanted to trust his wife, when his wife refused to tell him anything about the letters of the dancing man that scared her. He struggled so much as he wanted to protect his wife to maintain this mainly wedded one-year family. But at the same time, he did not know what to do as he has no clue what his wife was hiding from him. The external conflict is the appearance of Abe Slaney. Mr. Cuby surely did not expect the meaning behind those letters, and what his wife was trying to hide from him was a man.
Internal conflict in the engineer's thumb is a moment of indecision when Elise, the woman who suddenly showed up in front of Mr. Hadley, and she begged him to escape. And at that moment, Mr. Hadley thought for a second to just give up, and he just ignored her. But yeah, he was thinking to either leave or stay. The external conflict in the engineer's thumb is when Mr. Hadley was trying to escape the room where the engine was about to crush him up, and he tried to run away from the deathly chase by Colonel Lysander Stark. As for the POV, both stories were presented or started with Dr. Watson's point of view. As the author mentioned in his first publication of Sherlock Holmes series, The Study of Scarlet, Dr. Watson has the habit of writing diary entries, which contributes to almost all the cases handled by Holmes being told by in first person Dr. Watson's point of view.
The setting of The Dancing Man is set at Lythering Thorpe Manor, Norfolk, 1898, where the engineer's tomb was set in the summer of 1889 with no other information on the location. Arthur used strong language to impose the respective behaviors that would be taken against certain criminal acts. Probably because of his service during the wars that made him familiar with this kind of words. Arthur described the characters' inner minds vividly, so the readers can imagine how the characters felt.
So the word choice in this story is antique. The sentences showed how people during that time spoke. For example, "You may absolutely depend upon my doing so." I don't think that would what people in today's world say. Like, we would just simply say, "Oh, you can depend on me." Another word choice is emotional. There were many words that shows the emotions of the characters.
Throughout the story, Arthur used a lot of dialogue to represent the characters' behavior and thoughts. The first difference is that the main character, Sherlock Holmes, often expresses his idea about what to do in a way that is meant to impress others in The Dancing Man. The second difference is that Arthur shaped Holmes smarter than anyone else in the story by using ambiguous sentences that will trigger readers' curiosity.
The main style would be flashback because the main story was there because the engineer was retelling his story about his escape, and also descriptive where the engineer described some things. In conclusion, we can see that Arthur Conan Doyle has a specific writing style. All his stories are similar in terms of the plot, the story development, the theme, in which everything will be explained logically in a cause and effect pattern. For example, like A murdered B, thus C or A did C, because he murdered B. And description to details is also seems to be an important element in Arthur's writing. He used a lot of dialogue to show readers that it could be a clue to solve the case, or just to simply trigger readers' emotions. One funny pattern that we can see is that Arthur seems to put himself in one of the main characters, Dr. John Watson. In the stories, Dr. Watson is written and shaped as a professional doctor, where Arthur himself is also a professional surgeon, and a bit clueless as compared to Holmes, because he can never guess how Holmes get the right answer every time unless Holmes explained to him, and that can be related to the teacher-student relationship that he had with Dr. Joseph, his mentor during his degree. Furthermore, setting, theme, and conflict will be depending on how Arthur wanted the stories to be, and these three elements will be different for every story written by Arthur. However, for point of view, it is consistent from Dr. Watson's view. as the series of Sherlock Holmes is written to document the cases solved by Holmes.